Habari za asubuhi. Hello,
Hello.
I
Hello,
hope you
hello.
can hear me.
No. Yes, yes, yes. So,
So let us resume our starter program after a pause of 1 week due to unavoidable circumstances. And here we are. Actually, we covered what we called previously data organization part 1, but I have decided to rename that to variable renaming and rearranging of data, because the whole content, about 80%, were dominated by renaming variables, and the small part of moving columns by using order function, as well as sorting observations by using command sort and gsort. So I have decided to rewrite the document, which means the major part of what is covered now can be visible from the content, table of content, including the introduction, how do we do the simple and group renaming, how are we going to change name cases, the case of prefix and suffix renaming, stripping and assigning prefix and suffixes from variable names, as well as to manipulate the prefix names with numeric ending. Actually, this last part was partially covered. And before I proceed to today's content, I would like it to finalize this last part about manipulating prefix names with numeric ending to see how powerful it is and the way it can shorten the time in dealing with the column names with this character. And today's content is about Stata Data Documentation. I have also decided to split this document because the format content will be a standalone, the format command, because there is a lot to cover from format as well. So here in Stata Data Documentation, we just deal with the variable labels, with labels, of course, not only variable, because labels covers different aspects from data. So we'll go through labels, and at last we'll also touch about the notes, notes command. After this car command, I have decided to ignore it, but it is also there, which can work closely in conjunction with the notes. So this is what you were expecting to cover today, the starter documentation. But before that, I would like it to start with manipulating prefix names with numeric ending. So here, to make a consistency between the video session and the do file, I will also put this content of renaming here in today's do file, although on your own time you can move it to the do file of previous session. I'll also rename this do file. Instead of data organization part 1, it will read variable renaming as well as rearrangement of data, just like the way the content is renamed. So here, day 7, day 7, it is Stata Data Documentation. Data documentation. Then change the font. see, 18 is okay. Stata Data Documentation. Today is 20, it is 25th July. Where we're expecting to cover labels as well as notes. But I'll start with this case of manipulate prefix names with a numeric ending. Just to finalize this case here. So I will start by capturing the auto2 data to demonstrate this case. The auto2 data. So once you have your data in place, we can see them from browse here. Number one, you will have a prefix ending with a hash. So for prefix, it works just the same as when we are using asterisk. When we are using asterisk. But why hash is so special? Because a single hash will stand for one or more digits. That is rule number one. We're going to see this. And hash enclosed with brackets will stand only for one digit. If you need hash enclosed with two hash enclosed with brackets, it is the format for 2 digits exactly. Three the same. And you can specify any number of hash to any number of digits which you want. And here now, to start, I will change the rename function to use hash so that I can have hash data in place. So here we are. I would like it to put this, for example. How can I change the current names to take a specific prefix with a number at the end? If I do it like this, change names to prefix ending with number. So for example, what we have here, from variable make all the way to foreign. From variable make all the way to foreign. What can you do? I'll write the command rename, and then I'll put this up to. Why am I using this? I'll show you that the command underscore all will not work here. So I'll put var if I want var to be my prefix, and then I'll put hash. If I just end here, what will happen? You see this error. There are more word cards in new than old. So in order to achieve that, you should use the option called add number. Add number. So the option add number, now you see no error. And see your names now. They have been changed from var1 to var12. So it will depend with the total number of columns which you have. Since you have 12 columns, now we have a prefix of var followed up with with the number of columns. So you can adopt this easily from this format. This is the case, but to make life easier, I want to use the BP data because it has smaller number of variables. BP wide, BP wide dot clear. BP wide dot clear. So I want to do the same thing. These are the names. I will use them later. So let me put them here. So I can do the same thing, but since I want to take the action to the entire data, can I put this underscore all, then var, then add number? Is that possible? In this case in particular, you see that it is not possible. Even if I enclose this with a bracket, this command will not recognize that. So for entire data, you need to specify the range. So this case in particular, the var list underscore all is not recognized. So you have to specify the first and the last number in order to achieve that. In order to achieve that. So here you see now you have var 01 up to var 5. Var 01 up to var 5. What about this? What if I want to change prefix ending with a number, change prefix ending with number variable names? Like in this case, if I want to go back to change this to variable names, you can use a group renaming by picking var1, var2, var3, var4, var5. But since you know that you can use this trick, I can simply say rename, then var this one, and then I put my variable names. You need to specify them all. You cannot just put from BP patient to after because those names are not there in the data set. So you need to specify all names. Since we know our data set has 5 columns, then I'll put 5 column names. So you can easily change those names to original like that. So that is the first scenario. How you can switch between prefix names ending with a number to variable names and vice versa. So this is very powerful because if you just use the wildcard here, star, it can work, but not as efficient as this one. What makes this also very powerful, I will go back to SOS use adding leading 0. Adding leading 0 to numbers. Assume I have this data here. And I will rename them to add a number like this. Adding leading 0. Before that, this one. I want my data to occupy 2 digits. For example, these variable names with a single digit to start with 0. The other one with 2 digits will not be touched. How can I do that? Simply you come here and say rename var number to var. Now you say put a bracket, then this. Remember the format. It means each variable name will have 2 digits. So those names with a single digit will have leading 0. But those with 2 digits or more will not be touched. So like that, now you see here we have leading 0. You see here, 0, 1. But since 10, 11, and 12, we are already with the 2 digits, these ones will not be touched. And like that, you can change to any number of digits. Maybe I want them to have 3 digits, for example. 3 digits. So if you want them to have 3 digits, it will trail with the 2 zeros. So even 11 and 12, since they have 2 digits, you will have 1 leading 0. So you can always change them like that. So this is the scenario. What if I want to go back to original to have a single digit? Simply say any variable name with 3 digits should take just its original value without a leading 0. So you can do it like that. And sorry, why this one will not work? Because what is hash? Hash stand for 1 or more digits. So if you will change them, here it is already 3 digits, and the hash can stand for 1 digit, 2 digits, 3 digits, or even more. So here it means I will change those. If you want 1 digit, you need to put a format, which is to put a hash. So if you put a hash, now here will specify single digit. Change from 3 to 1 digit. 1 digit. I expect one problem here. You see it? So they have been changed into 1 digit, but since 10 and 12, they have 2 digits, there is no way you can strip away, because what you do is only to remove a leading 0. So those with 1 digit will occupy 1 digit. Those with 2 digits, the trailing 0 will be removed. That is a case of changing those digits. Another thing is changing starting position of number. Change starting position of number. Like here. I'll have this in place. Have this in place. So you have your data. But I said, no, I need the first column to start with number 5 and not var 1. Here, you will say rename what? Var hash, and you will add this var hash to var hash. The same thing, but you'll say this renumber 5. So 1 will be changed to 5, 2 to 6, 3 to 7, up to last, I think it will be 16 or 17, I'm not sure. So it is the same thing, only that you are changing the starting position, as you can see it here. So the first column now, instead of starting with 1, it will start with 5. So those positions can easily be manipulated like that. But if we use this star here, it will not work, because this add number only works with the hash. Only works with the hash. I think another thing which left from there, you can even add a prefix somewhere, change, add character after prefix and before this. You can add character before and after. How? Let me make use with another data set which is called web use. Web use reshape 1. Web use reshape 1. You see this? There is income 8, income 81, income 82, like that. Today I'm just dealing with a number. If this is here, what if I want to add 19 before these numbers to read 1980, 1981, 1982, 80, 81, 82? What if I need to do that? I can simply come here and say, rename what? Rename income hash. What? To still income, but to start with 19, then hash. So I have added a prefix before hash. So you can see it like this now. Now it is here. So that it must be like that, as a simple like that. So now instead of 80, you have 1980, 1981, 1982. Why this one has not been changed? Because we did only for income. I specified ink as a prefix. I specified ink as a prefix. So if I needed the other one, I was supposed to specify both. If you needed the whole thing, you could say this, rename your name. Now here you use the group approach. Rename this ink and employment this like this. And then we put what? We put our new I put here 19, 19, like that. So like this, it will work for all these. You could even put underscore and then that 19 if you wish to do that. So this one, you can even do it by using asterisk, but here it is the perfect place to do that. Perfect place to do that. And also you can add it at the end. If you don't want it at the beginning, you can even put that 00 after. Or after this one before, or before, and here or after. Rename what? Instead of this, maybe I put 00 here. I add 00 after this number. What will happen? Sorry, let me capture this. First. So here, if I just put 00, it will change this one to 80,100, 80,200, 80,000. You see it like this. So we have added 00 at the end of the prefix names. So that is what I wanted you to emphasize before I proceed with today's lesson. So I didn't do it properly previously. And you can do several things at once. So I'll go back here. Multiple change at once. And what is that? Once more, I'll copy. So yes, use auto 2, comma clear. And I will say here, from make, rename, from make all the way to foreign, add the number. Add the number. So foreign. Oh, I forgot this var. Yeah. So you see this. I want to change this prefix var to question. I will change, like here, rename var to what? To question. But at the same time, while I'm modifying number, I put a format. I put a format to be 2 numbers, for example. And I can also decide to add another character. Can also decide to add another character, but you will not do that. So at the same time here, I will manipulate the prefix, but you also manipulate the number, all at the same time. So that's why this is very, very powerful. As you can see here, question 01. So this question was due to prefix, but this leading 0 is due to those hash, 2 hash specified. If there is a question about this, because some of the data, I think from NBS, you'll find they written V001, V002 up to last. And the other description will find them from variable label. But here, you can also be able to manipulate data like that, the variable names, by using this approach. So it is something which is very common there. You can find when you acquire data from national statistical offices. That's why I could not ignore this before I clarify. It needs some practice. So sometimes it may not come to you at first attempt, but if you practice, eventually you'll find that it becomes part of you. So unless there is a question, if no, now I'd like you to move to data documentation. I'll move to data documentation. Is there a question about this concept of renaming? Particularly ending with numbers, because the other cases were already covered. So I think it's okay now. So now I'll move to data documentation. Stata data documentation. Here we're talking about labels and notes. We are yet to chart the data value, but this is among the core things. So when we talk about the Stata metadata, Stata documentation here. The introduction part about the notes and the labels. These are commands which will be used to document your data. Why? Because without this, you can have your data raw values, but someone else could not understand once the folder or the data file is shared with him or her. So to make everyone part of understanding this data, we should accompany this with a number of codes. Labels will provide short structured description that data actively use when displaying and analyzing data. And the notes will provide a long, free from documentation intended for human readers, documentation of raw values. We're going to see this one after another. And we have several commands to handle this. We have label. Here within label, we have subcommands, I think about 8 or 7. We have label book, we have num label, we have use label, and we have notes. Also, I will add another one, which is called the codebook out, but it is not a native command. It is a command which should be installed from external source. We're going to see how to do that. And here we're going to start with the Stata labels. In Stata labels, it is split into 3 cases. We have dataset labels, and this is a concern about the entire data. The label about the entire data. And we have variable labels. Each variable will have a specific documentation to clarify about the names. And the value labels, which has several syntax for different purposes. Here in value labels, I think we'll find about 6 subcommand, including label values, label define, label drop, and the rest. And before you proceed, you should recall about a string variable and a numeric variable. Data data keeps the columns in 2 data types. It may either be type numeric or it may be type string. As for variable label, this one is applicable to all data because it is about then more description about variable names. But value labels, this is only for numeric data. We could not have value labels for string or character data. So here I'll start with the label for the entire data. Label, Stata Data label. This is number 1. As you said, we have 3 levels or cases. So number 1 is the Stata Data label. If I say here help label, not labels, help label, you see this. Label entire data. The command is label, and then you modify it by adding the sub keyword, which is data. And here you see label. Here is where you're going to put your label within square bracket. So when you apply label here, you are assigning label to data. But if you want to remove it, simply you ignore this part. That's the meaning of this square bracket. So if I say here, describe data, for example, if I start with E, so I just use auto 2, clear. So I just use auto 2, clear here. If I say describe, where you can see your label, if I say describe, if I say describe, where will you see your label? It is here at the top. 1978 automobile data. This one is stamp, time stamp. It will always be there each time you save your data, so it will be updated. Since I'm using example data, then it means this data was created in 3rd January 2022 at 11, which is 5 p.m., 18 minutes past 5 p.m. This is where the data was created. If it happens that I save this data, for example, I save my auto, replace, my auto, replace. If I do describe again, what do you see here? 25th July 2026, which is my current time, 10 a.m., 40 minutes past 10. So this is not something which you can modify. It will always be there the moment you save your data. So you want to know when was your data last saved or created, you can always put a describe and read this. But what you see here at the top, this is what we call a data label. So if you want to change this or I want to remove this, this is what you're going to do. For example, I want my data to read automobile information. Automobile information. So you write your command, label data. You must start with the label, then data. Now I put my code here. Automobile information, maybe 2026, for example. If I do this and I write describe, since the content is shown at the top, I would like you to use describe short because I don't need to know about the variables here. My focus is at the top, so I can use short only to focus on what happens at the top. So here you do. So you see this now. The label now is changed. What? Automobile information. There is something here before. It was saying underscore DTA has notes. So we'll see about notes at the end of this. Here it is not there because this is another data and the notes is not attached there. If you save the data, it doesn't mean it will go along with the notes. So I have changed this to automobile information. So someone can have a glimpse about the content of the data the moment he or she describes the data. So this is the first case. For assign label, assign data label. What if I want to remove data label? Remove data label. Remove data label. If I want to remove data label, if I go back to syntax, simply ignore this part which is enclosed with a square bracket. So if I ignore this part enclosed with a square bracket, I'm simply removing label from data. So if I ignore it, I just write label data. If I rerun this, then describe short, what will happen? You'll see here, nothing from the label part. Label is supposed to be displayed at the top of timestamp. So you see it there, there is no data label. So that is it about the data label. Unless someone has a question, simply you can assign label and you can remove label, data label like that. Something similar to this is called variable label. So these two are very simple. Stata variable label. What about the stata variable label? I'd like you to go back to my SOS use auto2, clear. This variable label is what you see here. You have names and you have labels. Number one, why do we need to have variable labels? We say a variable label is a human readable description of a variable. Think of it as the data set. Sorry, this data set title was for data label, not variable label. Why do we need variable labels? I think I should edit this. We need variable labels due to some constraints or standard way of writing variable names. For example, variable name cannot contain space, but variable label can have a space. So like this, you see it here. Variable name is recommended to be short, but the name alone cannot describe full the content of the data. So you can add that by saying make and model. You see here from make and end, there is a space, and in model, there is a space. So you can always add those descriptions and someone can understand while still maintain the standard name practice of software. That is number one. Number two, the maximum number of characters for variable name is 32. You cannot have more than 32 characters in naming variables in Stata. But what about variable labels? You can have up to 80 characters. 80 characters. So you have more room to put more clarification about the variable. Number three, the variable name must be unique. You cannot use the same variable names for two different columns. That is not the case about variable labels. So you can use the same label to different names. Like here, I may have a name which is numeric format, and I have the same data, but I'll capture it with a string format. So in terms of clarification or label, they can have the same label, because it is the same thing with the only difference in data type. So you can use duplicates in terms of label. So variable label can repeat and no problem. Variable name cannot begin with a number. That is prohibited. But if a variable label, you can put anything. You can start with a number, you can start with anything, no problem. Variable name cannot contain a special character other than underscore, like @ hash, backslash, // and any other than an alphanumeric character, but variable label can capture any character with no problem. So that's why these are major 5 reasons why you should also have variable label on top of variable name to solve some of the limitations which happens for variable name. How do we attach label and remove label? It is very simple because it is very similar to data label with minor modification. How do we assign variable label? To assign variable label, the syntax is down here. It is still a label, but instead of data, now we put a variable. Since there is a possibility of having several columns of several variables, then you must also specify variable name. We don't leave that to default. So which variable in particular do you want to add a label? So after label, we put a variable, and you can shorten this by writing just a var, and then your variable name. For data, since you just use one data, no problem. You don't need to specify the name of the data. But here, we must specify the name of the variable. Then we add our label. As you can see, similar patterns like this one. If we ignore this square bracket, it means we are going to remove label from data. That is the scenario. So how do we assign? Like here, I'll say the price. I want to add a description about this. If I want to add a description, I'll say label variable. After label variable, I put the variable name since I want to deal with the price, and then I put in my description here. Price of car models in USD, for example. Initially, if I just say here, describe price, you see the label is just a price. But what will happen after this? If I say describe price once more, now you will see the labels here, price of car models in USD. So these details, which is like a sentence, you cannot write like this in variable name because names tend to have restriction. It is preferred to have a short name and no spaces allowed. But more details about the names, someone who describe this, although here he can just see price, he can go to variable label to get more details about that price. And that's what we call it is data documentation. And like that, you can do to any variable. Like here, I can say label variable, but this time it is MPG. I say miles. Someone may not understand the mpg. You say miles per gallon. Miles covered. Miles covered per gallon, per 1 gallon. So if I say here, describe car data, then you'll see this. That label is here, the price of car models in USD, miles covered per gallon. So what if I want to remove label? Remove variable label. Remove variable labels. As you can see here, you need to specify var name and not var list. So if you want to remove variable label, you remove one variable at a time. And what should you do? What you need is just to ignore this label within square bracket. So you just need to specify label variable price and the label variable mpg. So for putting nothing, it means you are removing that. Or you can even decide to put empty string like this. But the recommended approach is to ignore the content. Then I'll say describe once more. Describe. So you see this here now, those labels are no longer there. So we don't have a description about the price and about the mpg. So you can always add those labels, or you can remove as you wish. So this is the data label and the variable label. This one always take a small part. Major part about data documentation is about value labels. It is about value labels. So that is the second part, starter variable label. If someone has a question, as you can see, the focus is about variable names. It doesn't matter about the nature of the data, be it numeric or be it string, but we are focusing on the names. Starter value label. So here is the real deal. 95, I can say, or 98% when you are talking about labels, the concern is about the value labels, because this is what we're going to have even as output. Starter value labels. We have several issues to cover from here. So number one, about the value label, it is a feature that allows to map numeric codes to text descriptions. I will start by calling SYS use auto, not auto 2, I'll just say auto. I have my own meaning. In data, for numeric data now, focus now is for numeric, because value label is only for numeric. I should add here applicable for numeric data only. For numeric data only. And you will see the blue color. The data with the value label will always appear with the blue color. I talked about this. Like in this case, the data with the value label here, it is foreign, because you see blue here. In which kind of scenario do we need the labels, and which kind of scenario we don't need the labels? The data which is a measurement, like a price, weight, we don't need the labels from this, because the matter here is to ask the unit of measurement which was used to produce these figures. Like when I see this 4,099, I know that this is US dollar. When I see weight, maybe this represents tons, or it represents kilograms. When I see length, maybe it represents meter or whatever. But when it comes to categorical data, like in the case of Rep 78, these values, since it is categorical, they have meaning behind this. Like the variable sex. If you capture data as 1 and 2, you must attach the meaning of what is 1 and what is 2. Like here, it is called foreign. They captured data as 0 and 1. What is behind 0? What is behind 1? So like that. So number 1, this is what we see. So I'll change my data to auto 2. The only difference between auto and the auto 2, rep 78 now will contain labels for auto 2. So those values, what is behind 3? 3 represent average. Fair represent, fair is the label for code number 2 and the likes. So now let us describe this. From here, if I write describe, let me start with describe. When I write describe, what is common? Check here. The blue color is on variable rep 78 and variable foreign. When I write describe, you will see that the variable rep 78 is associated with a value label called repair. And the variable foreign is associated with a variable called origin. So always when you find the variable as a blue color in your browse, it will be associated with a value label name. And these are value label names. So from now, we are going to see how can we describe these labels, number 1. Number 2, how can we create them? How can we remove them? How can we assign them? How can we modify them? That's why I said 98% of the issue of data documentation will be focusing on value label. So here now, what can you do with a value label? You can define label, which means it's creating label. You can copy label, which means to create a second copy, a copy of the existing label. You can remove it from memory by using label drop. This one is a label define, label copy, label drop. You can also assign those labels and remove them by using the syntax called label values. Everything starts with the label, start with the label values. We can also see all labels within Stata memory by using label dir. And we can also see all specific labels of the current data set by using label list. If someone has access to Stata 19, myself, I don't have it yet, you'll also see the command called the label rename. It is possible to change the name of the label. It is very crucial because sometimes we need to make the variable label to have similar name with the label name. As for Stata 18 backward, to achieve that one, we need several steps. So this is also a concern why you should always try to access the current version due to some important improvements. So myself, I should also look for Stata 19 in order to enjoy how I can easily rename a label value. So that is part of the label, but also we do have some other native commands which still deal with the label. We have the command called the label book, which is it is a similar version with the code book. Code book will deal with the variable names, but label book deals with the label names. And we have another command called the num label. This can always be used to modify the appearance of the label by adding a prefix, a number-free prefix of label. And also going to see the other function called use label, which can provide a data set with all labels description, or even some, whatever you wish. So we expect to cover about 9 commands dealing with the label values. I'll start one after another. So to explore about value label, they have different tasks. To explore about value label, we'll use label dir, label list. This use label, I have already moved it to somewhere else, so it will not be covered here. but I'll cover label dir, label list, and the label book. The data which is very rich in value labels is NLS W88. So I will capture this. I will call this data to my Stata memory to enjoy its richness in terms of value labels. So number one here, what should you do is list of all label names from the current data set. List of all label names from current data set. So number one, my current data is SYSUs, NLSW, NLSW88, comma clear. This data has so many blue columns. That's why I like this, to use this for demonstration. So all these with blues are data with value labels. Even if I write describe here, you will see that describe, you see this. So res variable is associated with res label. Married is associated with mar label. Up to union is associated with union label. So these are label names. We're going to see how we can remove them and how we can create them and how we can assign them. That is number one. But before that, let us describe. So if I just write label dir, this is, I'll put this 3.1, a list of all label names. So if I just say label dir, I will see all labels. Here in describe, you could see the mapping between label, and now we moved it from variable label to value label. You could see the mapping from label to variable label. Not all variables will have value labels. As you can see, string values will not have value labels, but also numerically measured, we don't need to put value labels. Only labels with the categorical cases you can attach with the value labels. So here it is mapped with this one. So describe will enable you to see that. But if my focus is only on labels, so the label names will be listed here, from first to last. This is what label dir will do for you. So this is number one. Another case about to explore the value labels of the entire data set is list of all labels, list of label names and codes associated with them. How can I do that? 3.2, list of all label names and codes for the current data sets. Instead of label dir, once more, you will find this from label. Label dir is somewhere here, list of names of value labels. Now, how about label list? See this, you can just put label list here, but you can also specify specific labels to see the codes. Our intention, like here, I want to see the mapping. Here, if I put my cursor here, I see black, and behind the black, there is 2. I see white, behind the white, there is 1. If data is very huge, or the data is sorted, you will struggle to map the label name and the code behind the label name. So what you should do here, you can use label list. Label list. What happens if I use label list? Unlike label dir, which will just put names, label list will do what? Label list will give you the name of the label and the labels for each code. Like number 1 is coded AG forest fisheries. As you can see, you see this /. For labels, it is possible also. So we have 12 different codes. The nature of the data is numeric, that's why we have number. But a label associated with it is that one. So union label, it has 0 and 1, 0 non-union, 1 union. City label, it has code 0, null, not central city, 1 central city. South label, not south, then south, like that till the end. till the end. But why now you may need to modify this? If it happens that your data is very huge, when you just put label list, assume like those data from NBS surveys, you may have even up to 300 variables with labels. So if you just put a label list, it will flood your results window. So it is recommended that you may be interested after describe. Maybe you put describe. You put describe, and you're interested to say, I need this res. The label of res is what? Res label. And what? College graduate. Maybe you copy this label for college graduate. And what else? Occupation. I copy this label for occupation. So once I have my labels, I can capture all of them. And then now remember this syntax. You can specify the first label, second label, up to last as you wish. Any number of labels will do. So if I put a label list now, remember, after label lists, it will be followed with label names and not variable names. We are dealing with labels. So here you describe the same thing, sorry. It is label list, label list. After command, it will do the same thing, but only for captured labels and not for entire data. So since we specified this and this and this, so we see the content of 3 labels, like here. So this is the side of checking how to map the code value and the labels associated with it. So this is second case about labels. 3.3. 3.3. What is this? Label book. 3.3 is label book. I didn't put a label book somewhere. Yeah, I need to move this. I forgot to move it from there. What about label book? Use label will come later. I'll talk about this. I was supposed to move it after that. This one, code book command is used to describe the variables in dataset. This is what we do with the code book. Like if I write here, we can remember this. Value label description. Value label description by using label book. If I just write, let me clear whatever happened here from my results window. If I just put code book, we remember code book. It will describe each data, like tenure data, the name is tenure, the label, variable label is tenure data, job tenure in years. It will give so and so some stuffs. We did this when we were doing Stata Data Description. So that will use variable names to do the description of the data. But now I want to focus, and if the data has a label, if the variable has got labels, what you will see, like here, you see the numeric, you see the label, and the numeric, and the label name. So codebook also will enable you to connect between a label name and a variable name. The variable name is here, the label name is here. Something which you can see even with describe. If I say describe, you see here, the label name is here, the variable name is here. But sometimes you just have a variable, you have a value label, and you need to map it with the variable name. What can you do from there? If I clean this again, now if I write a label book, for variables. If I write label book, something similar to code book, but for value labels. For value labels. For value labels. So here now, if I go to my screen, you see it here. The value label is called CCT label. How many codes are there? You have 4 subsections from here, which you can talk about value labels. There is the side of values. So how many values? We have 2, 0 and 1. There is the side of labels. There is the side of definition. And there is the side of variables. How many variables are attached to this value label? So even if you just have value label, and before I move from there, I should be supposed to start with the help for you to see the syntax. Help label book. Help label book. See it here. Label book, label name list, and then a label book options. Label book options. Among the options, you see length, alpha, problems, but me, I'll just focus with the problems later on. So here, for the side of that one, this one will do it for the entire data. This one will do it for entire data. For specific data, for specific labels, sorry. For specific labels, just like what we did here in label list. Can put it here, but instead of label list, now I'll have label book. And this is what is recommended. Because most of the time, you will start with the label dir to see your labels. So you see it here. We have our 3 cases. Let me clean this to know where we end. So here, you have our labels. Let me explain about those 4 components. Number 1, you see the label name. You want to see this label name is attached to how many variables or which variables you see here. This label name is attached to college graduate. So if you want to use the command like describe, we cannot say describe this, because this is a label name. You'll never get output from here. That will never work. But you will say describe variable name. So variable name, will find it down here. You'll find it down here if you want to use the command describe, which is attached to that label. So previously, we are looking for variable name, then we see attached label. But here, we start with label, then we see attached variable. So that is the advantage of label book, which you will never have when you use label list or label dir. They will just give you the description about labels, but they will never tell you which variable is attached to this label. So this is number 1. The second one is definition, the same thing you acquired from label list. So actually, this is the only thing we get from label list, which will give you label name as well as the mapping. 0 is coded with what, and 1 is coded with what. But another thing, you see values, the range. Here we have only 2 label values, which is 0 and 1. So the number of unique labels is 2. Do we have gaps? What does it mean by gaps? It's like you have 0, then you have 2. We'll see this for the part of the problem. So no, all numbers are consecutive. After 0, we have 1. Do we have a missing? We don't have missing. About labels, string length here. What is attached to this? String length, the minimum is 12 and the maximum is 16. What does it mean? This length, which is used to create the label, I can say here display string length to know how many characters are there. So we find this is 16, and this is what has been displayed here. So you can get clarification about that. So the minimum has 12, which is this one, and the maximum string length is 16. And here it is about labels. About values is this side. About labels, it is this side. And it says unique at full length. If you provide full length, are these labels unique? It says yes. Unique at length 12. If we truncate this up to character 12, we ignore the last 4 characters, for example. Are they still unique? The answer is yes. Why? Because sometimes in displaying values, you will find that the labels are cut short. They are not going to display full name. And the rule of thumb is to shorten them by using 12 characters. So if it happens the first 12 characters are the same, you can get confused which label represent which values. Another thing, do we have null string? No. Leading and trailing breaks? No. And numeric to numeric? No. We'll see this as part of the problems later. As for this case, we don't have leading and trailing labels. So we'll create some artificial labels later on, try to diagnose about those problems. So this is about that. So like in this case, here now, how many labels are there? We have 13 different labels. The label name is our C label, LBL, and it is attached to occupation variable. The mapping is here, something which you have already seen from label list. And what else? How many values are there? We have 13. The minimum is 1, the maximum 13. And we have 13 in totals. Here, the minimum label has got 5 characters. This one is cells. But we have the other one, which has got 22 characters. When you see this underline, they are trying to track the first 12 characters. To say this, are they unique at the length 12? This is the meaning of this underline. So this underline here is to track the first 12 characters. So if it happens the label is extended beyond 12 characters, there is when you will see this underline. But if not, that is not the case, you will never see this underline. So like this is how you use a label book. Something similar to code book, but specified for labels. Does anyone have question? Here we are just describing the contents of the labels. Sometimes, most of the time, we receive the data set and the labels are already there. You will create labels if you are the one who is organizing the data. But if you are using secondary data, most of the time we'll find the labels are already there in place. So for you, you just need a command for describing them, for you to understand them, like what we did from here. So that is about value labels description. The issue of problems will come later, so I'll skip it here. But now I will go to value labels manipulation. Here, we're going to see now how we can create our own label, how we can copy the label, existing label, and how we can attach value codes to labels. But before I move forward, if someone has question about what I have clarified so far, this is your time, you can interrupt. But if no, now I will go to how did those labels come into place, because they're not going to fall from nowhere. They need to be prepared. So how do you prepare your labels? Number one, the syntax to do that is called label define. As I said, when we are dealing with the labels, most of the time, your syntax will start with the label, and then it will have a keyword to modify the content. So the syntax here is to write label define, number one. After label define, you put your label name. After label name now, you will go to your data set. You are mapping the values which are captured in your data with labels. So which values do you have from your data set? You put the first value, you put its label. If the label is just one name, there is no need of quotes. But if the label has a space, for example, you must use quotes. So the rule of thumb, always I prefer to use quotes because it will work for both, with or without space. And it can goes on depending on how many values do you have. So if you have only two values, you create only two labels. You have three values, you create three. You have up to 13 values, you create all of them just like that. And this syntax is accompanied with three options. You can use add, modify, replace. Each of these has its own implication, and we are going to clarify each of them. But before we move, label name has a similar attributes or characteristics to the variable name. So wherever we covered about variable names, those properties will also be applicable here in label name. Number one, every value label in dataset must have a unique name. As you can recall, the variable name also has similar attributes. And when we talk about label names, we're talking about this, this column here, labels. So no space for variable name, also no space for label names. Unique name for variable names, unique name for label names. Maximum length of value of characters is 32, just like a variable name. You cannot have a variable name with more than 32 characters. So the similar case will appear to label names. If you want to put your name here, you should follow a similar pattern. Value label name cannot contain space. Similar case, you have seen it in variable names. It cannot start with a number, but you must start with either letter or underscore. The same for label name. Value label cannot contain special character, just the case like in variable names. And also value labels are case sensitive. If I write a price with a lowercase is different with a price with the uppercase, or even at least with one character which is in uppercase. So now let us start our thing. I will create a value label called yes, no. You can put any name here as you wish, but me, I have decided to put it as yes, no. So this will be 3.4 value label creation. Value label creation. Value label creation. So the syntax is label define. And then you put your label name, yes, no. Remember those characteristics of label names. And here I want from my data, the one with the code is 0 to have no, to appear as no. And the one with the code 1 to appear as yes. I will end there. So if I do this, up to this point, I have already created my value label. You want to see them, you have several options. If I put a label dir, you will see now among the list of labels is yes, no. It is there now. The last one to be created will be listed first. It is there. I want to see it with mapping. I can say label list. Label list, yes, no. Label list, yes, no. We have covered this previously. So you see here your yes, no is there. 0 with no, 1 with yes. Or I can say label book yes, no. After creating it, it means now I can use any command description. It says what? I have values 0 and 1, labels, string length, a minimum was 2 characters, maximum was 3 characters. You can see here 2 characters, 3 characters. The rest I can explain them later. So that is about creating a label. Now, what is the use of these options? Add, modify, and replace. If it happens that I forgot one label, like maybe I have two as my character. If I put this, I can come here and say, from yes, no, please add 2. Remember here we put code 1, code 0, and code 1. Now code 2 will take other. So the only thing, use of add option. If I just put it like this, it will throw error and it says yes, no has already been created. Yes, no already defined. So I should use add here to modify. Sorry, add here to increase or to put this number here. So you see it, this one, it's okay. If I try now to do again a label list or label dir, label list, what will you see? Now you see the other option now is captured. So you don't need to start from afresh to put 1, 0, and 1 and wherever. You can just add the missing label to the existing label with option add. Another option is modify. Use of modify option. This modify will do what? If I try, maybe I said, no, this yes here should start with uppercase and this other as well. What should I do? Should come here and say label, fine, and then 1. If I put yes, and then 2, if I put other, remember now these are now starting with the uppercase. If I say add, what will happen? It says 1 invalid name. Oh, sorry, label define. I should put name first. Yes, no. Yes, no. Label define. See this invalid attempt to modify label. Add will work if and only if you are adding a new code. Like here, 2 was not there. Initially we had 0 and 1. Now since you add a new code, you can use add. But since the code is already there, you just need to modify these labels. You must use modify. But modify will work even if you add another code. Like NA, not applicable. So even if you put something new, so modify will do the job of add at the same time modifying existing labels. So if I put it here and say label list yes, no, what will happen? You see this now? Now, yes, with the lowercase is appearing with the uppercase, even with the other, and then NA. The question here. Is yes, no a variable name? No, as we said. Yes, no, it is a label name. What comes after label define will be a label name. we are yet to touch anything about a variable. After creating label, then it will come to variable. Yeah. So it is a label name and not a variable name. We must separate these two cases. We have label name and a variable name. Most of the time, they tend to confuse a lot. But here we are, we'll explain everything. So modify can do the job of add, but at the same time, modifying the existing content. Now the issue is, if I needed to rerun the same line, use of replace. I prefer this one a lot. Replace, if I rerun this, for example, if I put this one, even if I rerun this modify no problem, it will work. But if I put this label, then yes, add will never work. If I use replace option here, you know what will happen? Instead of putting label number 2, it will remove wherever existed before for yes, no, and then it will start afresh. So the only code you are going to find out is 2 other, because this no and yes will be deleted. Will be deleted. So you see it here. They are not there. They are not there. So when you use this, what we prefer, specify all labels and then put a replace. So replace will remove wherever existed before and create this new label from the scratch by using this code. So this one also, what is the difference between modify and this one? If I use modify, for example, you see it here. I have 1, 2, and NA. I should start from here so that modify will do the job. So label list, you see it here. Label list. Let me remove this because the label is already existing. We're going to learn this soon, but now I have to take it out to explain this concept. Let me remove this first. If I start from here, you see it. Label define yes, no. If I come here and say add label list, for example, you see 0 and 1. If I say modify, I put 1 for yes, 2 for other, and NA. It will take care with just stuff which need modification. So you see 0 will still be there. 1, 2, 4, they are there. But if I use the same command for replace, it will start with 1 only. It will not modify that existing 0. So that is the problem. So if I put this replace here, you will never see that is 0 because number 1, the command will remove wherever existed before for yes, no. So what existed before it is 0. Only those labels which are defined here will exist. So when you are using replace, you must define everything, because if you don't do so, it will delete all of them. So define from 0 all the way to 4. Label list like that. Here now I can put a label book to clarify one thing. Label book. It is a label book for yes, no. You see, I skipped the 3 on purpose. Label book, among the things will tell you, you see now here, about the gaps. It says what? Yes. Because from 0 all the way to 4, there is a number which is skipped here, which is 3. So the status of these gaps is to tell you from this range, from 0 up to 4, all labels, all codes, are they captured with labels, or there is a code which is skipped? And that is the case. So I wanted you to see this. What is the meaning of the gaps? So here, since from 2, we don't have 3, we have 4. Stata tells you, or label book tells you that it is yes from this corner. So that is about defining. So you can create any label just like that. So myself, I prefer to use replace to redefine everything with replace, because if I rerun the code, I will never see error that the label so-and-so already existed. Because if you ignore this, if you don't put a replace, for example, you'll have this error that will say label yes, no already defined. So to avoid this, I always move with replace, but be cautioned. You need to prefer to map all codes. If you skip any of this, then it will be deleted from labels. Otherwise, if you want to skip some, then use modify. So I hope the concept of add, modify, and replace are now clear before I move to something else. Is it okay? About label creation? Okay, so now another thing about if I do label book here in variables, you see it plain here, which means this label, this yes, no label currently is not mapped with any variable. It is not attached with any variable. To create a label, it is something separate to variable names. So number 1, you create a label name, which will accommodate all labels for codes. But after that, do not rush here to see what are the changes, because here what you see are columns which are associated with variable names. So these columns which are associated with variable names, you want to see your labels, you must attach now. Here now, the relationship between variable name and the label name will come visible. So you want to attach a label and a variable. Create copy. Oh, before that, a copy of existing label. Copy of existing label. Another way of making a label come to place. Copy of existing label. This is number what? 3.5. 3.5. Create a copy of existing label. Sometimes you may need maybe different names for different purpose. Like I need the name to appear because in Stata 18, we don't have rename. So maybe if I need to make the name to look similar with a variable name, for example, like here, married, I would like the label to be the same with the variable name. So you can come here and say, let me say describe married. The describe married has a label which is called the mar label, for example. So you can say a label list. Label list. This one, 0 and 1. But maybe your intention is to say, I wish also my label name could be the same as variable name. Since for Stata 18, we don't have label rename command. It is there for Stata 19. For here, you can use this concept. You can say label copy. Label copy what? This one, mar label, to to this one. So it's like you are creating a new label, which is called married. Remember, it is not there from label list. If I say here label dir, you will never find a married here as a label. But the moment I execute this command, label copy, if I say now label dir, among the labels which will find them is a label called married, is here. Eh? So what is so special? If I say here now label list, what this mar label and married, they are going to have similar content. The only difference is going to be name, because simply that is the copy. Eh? So mar label married. So this married was duplicated or was copied from mar label. So sometimes if you want to make your variable label, your variable name and the label name to look similar, currently for Stata 18, 17 backwards, you can use this approach because you don't have their name command. But this is how you can make a label come to existence. You can use the label definer to build the label from the scratch. But if label is already part of the data, you can use the label copy to make it come to existence. Once you have them, do not expect that they will map directly to your data. Now we need to attach, customize, attach the code with value labels. This one I'll come back to it later. Customize. After linking, I'll come back to customize. The link between variable names and the value label. This is very important, because now you want to see the changes. You want to see the changes. 3.6. 3.6. Number one, label defining command create dictionary for numeric codes, which is mapping codes and labels. Label values command is the action which attach and detach the dictionary to your data. So you can use this command to remove labels and to attach labels. Since the labels are already there, like here in this case, you have labels. I will start with detaching, remove value labels. How can you remove value labels? You use value labels, label values, and then you put your var list here, and then you put a dot at the end, because this is what we can see from help. Value labels, label values, var list, and then we put a label name if you want to assign. We put a dot or nothing if you want to remove. Myself, I prefer to put dot. So I'll start with the concept of removing value labels. Remove value labels. Number one, I will select these 4 variables. I'll select them. I would like you to put describe here, because there is something very important for you to see. Do you see them when I put describe? Since each variable, and even if I put browse, see each column is blue, which means if I use describe, each variable will be accompanied with the label name here. After removing them, when you redo that action, if I say label values, I put my variable labels, then I put a dot at the end. Here now, I have removed all labels. If you go to browse now, you see plain numbers, 0, 1, 0, 1, index 5, like that. So here, the action is, I have removed those labels. I have removed those labels. What if I need to put them back? Now here the lesson, attach value labels. Attach value labels. Remember that those labels are still there in your starter memory. If you put a label dir, if I put a label dir, you remember that here, the label associated with married was mar label. It is still there, mar label is still there. Only that it is not attached to the data. But something else, if I redo describe, what will you see from describe? Now it is plain here. So the command describe also, among the advantage of using it, it will tell you if that variable is attached to labels or not. So the moment you detach the variables, the labels, you'll also see if the column, the part of label is empty. Previously, labels were there, but now it is empty. Now I want to take them back, put them back. What should you do? You put each variable to its respective label. If the variable share codes, you can use the same label to all variables. But for now, let us return the label of each variable independently. Like in this case, I will say for married, I'll say here, the command label values, married, its label is mar label. So the moment I do this, you'll find that here, it comes back. How about the college graduate? Label values. We have college graduate. Sorry, let me paste this 3 times. We have college graduate. We have CCT. We have interest. So be careful when you're assigning labels, like here. College graduate, initially it was graduate against no graduate. So if I put the marital status label to college graduate, what you see here, it will put married, it will put 0 single and 1 married, something which is not the status of college graduate. So you must be careful when you are attaching label. So this one, since it is not an appropriate label, see what happens. You have attached the wrong label. The mapping is the same, 0 and 1, but the meaning is different. So you must capture the appropriate label for that particular variable. So for college graduate, the label was what? For college graduate, the label was grad label. This was for college graduate. And sorry, it is here. For CCT, the label was CCT label. You have prepared your labels already. For industry, the label was industry label. So this time around, if I run this, you'll find that the labels for college graduate now are appropriate. For CCT, I put the label name for CCT. It is there. And for industry, I put the label name for industry. It is there. As I said, should be careful. What is the general syntax once more? It is var list. So it can be variable name. It can be var list. So you put your var list, then label name. In which kind of scenario you just need to use one variable only, and in which kind of scenarios you need to use var list? Here. When you have similar codes, when you have similar codes, for example, assigning multiple value labels assign value to multiple variable names. I'll tell you something here. What is common about these three variables? What is common about these three variables? Let me go to codebook to see what is common about these three variables. What these three variables they share in common is numeric values 0, 1. 0, 1. 0, 1. So if your variable shares codes like this one, also I can put this label values and then a dot, remove labels. What will you see? All of them, they have 0, 1, 0, 1. This interesting is something else because the codes here, they range between 1 and 13. So I'm interested with this. So as long as the codes are the same, you can attach one label to all these variables with similar codes. Like in this case, you remember our yes, no. Yes, no. Label list, yes, no. Since yes, no was created to attach 0 for no, 1 for yes. And if you have 2 and the rest, it will work. So I can attach these three variables, the same command. Married, college graduate, C city, and if you have any other variable with yes, no, with 0 and 1, I can attach yes, no here. So for all of them, it will read yes, no, and it will be meaningful. Is this guy married? No, yes. College graduate? No, yes. C city? No, yes. So sometimes we can create a label which is universal. Unlike the previous one, which about married, not married, if you put it to college graduate, it is meaningless or C city. But the label like this, it can work for multiple data. The condition is they must share the code values. So like people may create a survey with Likert scale. All questions have 1 to 5, from poor to very good. So like that, you just need one label. You just need one label to all variables for all those which share similar case. Is there a question about now how we can attach the variable with value labels? So you will have a variable name to your left, label name to your right if you have only one variable. But for multiple variables, number one, you list all variables. At the end, you put your label name. That is the structure. If there is a question about that, please welcome. Before I proceed, okay. No, now there is something else which I wanted to do after that. How do we attach codes with value labels? How do we attach codes with value labels? Attach codes with value labels. Now, this is number, it came from number what? 3.6. Now this will be 3.7. This time around, I would prefer to use auto data or the same data. I can use res. If I tab here, res. If I tab res, you see this. And if I say here label list, what is the label associated with res? I can use the command describe or the command codebook. I will twist the command for you to grasp the multiple ways of doing the same thing. So the label is called res label. If you use codebook, you'll get it from here, res label. So label list, res label. Here. So you can see 1 is associated with white, 2 with black, 3 with other. The same thing, you can also see it from here. White, other. But also, if I browse res, you see it like that. So in some of the occasions, people prefer to see the codes attached with the labels. So instead of doing that manually, you can use the command num label to add those lists. Num label to add those lists. Like in this case here, I can come here and say num label. What is num label? My label is res label. This is the res label. And then I say add. What is the meaning of this add? Attaching codes to label text. Attach codes to label text. So once I do this, you will see it from here. Now, these one labels, they are attaching with their code. Black was coded 2, now you see 2 dot, 1 dot. And even if we use tab now, if I use tab res, the variable, command tab would not go with the label, but with the variable name. You see now, this is what happens. So you want to know the code associated with the white, you can see it from here. And even if you say label list, same command, label list, you see now the label contains number. The label contains number here. So this is the code, but this is the label now. This is the label. This is the label. The advantage, you will see the label and the code all together. What if I want to remove? It is the same thing. Remove codes from label text. Remove codes from label text. It is the same thing, but instead of adding now, you will use the syntax remove. You will use the syntax remove, and it will go back to default. It has been removed. The other thing, you can do this to multiple labels with no problems. You can do this to multiple labels. I forgot one important thing. Let me go back. Here, the moment I attached this, yes, no. The moment I attached this, yes, no. If we use label book, see it here. Label book, yes, no. Previously, it was empty. Now, if I use yes, no, the advantage of label book, it will list the variables which has used this label. So even if there are 10, you see all of them here. This is very, very important. You will never get this from other syntaxes. But here it is the case. So you can add it like that, add and remove label text. But also, you can customize what you want to add, and you can use several. The rest you will try on your own. You can use several labels at par, no problem. Like here, I can use industry label and the rest label all together. For multiple label, it will also be okay. Multiple labels, add and remove for multiple, add and remove codes for multiple labels. So here you see industry and the res will be preceded with the codes. Res here, where is the industry? It is here. You see those? So you want to see your codes associated with the labels. And just like you captured them, also you can remove them. So this is it. But we can customize prefix, customize prefix code, prefix code. How can you customize that one? Can customize them. I think, oh, this is the something which missed from there. This handout was supposed to be pushed forward. I can use mask. I forgot to move it. I can use a mask to put something after label. Here, for example, I want to capture num label, add, then mask. And I say what in mask? I put quotes because it is a string. And after label, it can be before label or after label. I can say maybe here, option so-and-so. So what you will see from label list, it will start with the option that number. Instead of just a pure number, it will be like this option 1, white, option so-and-so. But since I didn't put a space, then 1 and the white, they are attached together. So like that, but you can remove also. Now the issue is, if you use mask, to customize, if you just use plain remove, it will never work. Remove, it will never work. So just say remove, it will never work because the default is to remove only codes. So they'll still be there. So you want to remove also should use the mask you have attached. So like this, sorry, not here. So like this, you'll be able to remove it. But we'll customize for the last time. And they can put here serial number. And here I'll put a space in order to control the output. Like here's this serial number 1, white, serial number 2, just like that. So this is how you can attach and remove codes from variable labels. Guys, it is already 12. And the content is yet to be finished. Maybe for the next 15 or 20 minutes. Can we carry on or should we stop here, then resume upon the next session? I need to hear from your end.
I think you might decide on this one.
Need your votes. Because I said the session will be 2 hours from 10 to 12. But now it is 4 minutes past 12.
You can carry on and they finish.
Yes, please. I cannot hear you clearly.
You can carry on and finish.
Okay. Tumalizie au tusimame?
Yes, unaweza kumalizia.
Yeah, because the rhythm is the same. So when you start afresh, maybe we lack some continuity. Let me finalize. So another thing is to remove label from starter memory. Since we create, wherever has been created can be removed. Wherever has been created can be removed. So to erase label from starter memory, to erase, this will be number Number what? 3.7. 3.8 now. 3.8. So we have created yes, no label. Want to remove it, we say label drop. Label drop, yes, no. So wherever has been attached to yes, no, you see nothing here because it will no longer from memory. So if I say label dir, you no longer see yes, no. And to remove all labels, drop in specific labels, but you can drop all labels by using underscore label. Drop in all labels from entire data. You say label drop underscore all. It will remove every label from that data. So if I put a label dir now here, you will see nothing. There is nothing here. And even if you browse, there is nothing here. Because all labels has been removed from data. Do not prefer this action that much because you may be forced to recreate a label from scratch if you didn't use the do file. If it happens that you use the do file to create that, the only thing you need is to rerun your do file. But if we are using command window or main drop-down menu, you'll be in trouble. So label drop, you can remove it from there. Another thing is to diagnose value labels problems. This is very important. I said I'll do it lastly. So we are almost in the other last commands, 3.9. Diagnose value labels problems. And here, there are several problems to talk about. Check if there is a gap in mapped values, string contain leading or trailing blanks, label contain duplicated labels, value label contain duplicated labels at length 12, value label contain numeric mappings, value label contains null string mappings. Value label is not used for variables. Yeah. So let me recall. SYS use NLSW 88, clear. And I will start with my yes, no. My yes, no. No, not yes, no. This are enough. I will put here, I'll copy this and I will explain because we have already talked about those. I'm creating label called Marcho 1, Marcho 2, Marcho 3, Marcho 4, and the year. Marcho 1, I put 1, 2, 4, 6. You see, I skipped the 3 and 5. This is among the problems can be diagnosed. And Marcho 2, I'm putting single, married, divorced, widowed. Similar to Marcho 1. But what is the problem? See here, there is a space before the last quote. This is called a trailing space. Here, there is a space before married. It is called the leading space. This one has got both leading and the trailing space. This one is okay. How about this one? This one, I created something perfect. But see here now, there is a single here and a single here. The label name is repeated. There is a duplicate. For codes, no, you cannot do that. About this one, I created an empty string here. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, but this 4, I didn't put anything here other than a space. But take note of this one. I have created the labels, but these labels are numeric in nature. These are numbers. The labels are numbers. Let me use auto 2, for example. So if I do this, when you go to label dir, it will list existing labels, which were 2, and these 2. We have repair on place and origin, and this one. And if I use label list, for example, label list, you will see what will be there. Can even see this gap here for trailing space. Now, if I use this command, label book, diagnose problems, problems with label book command. These commands, if I say here label book, and then I add the option problems, what will happen? It will diagnose the following. It will tell you a variable which map numeric label is here. As you can see it here, the labels for this here are also numbers. We are using it to text. So this will tell you that here is mapped by using numeric labels. And the gaps in mapped values, you remember the issue of gaps. There is no continuity in numbering. It tells you Maricho 1 and Maricho 2. And what actually is the possible problem? Here, from 2 we have 3, and from 4 we have 6. We skip the 3 and 5. So this is the message which is communicated from here. Gaps in mapped value, go to label Maricho 1 and Maricho 2. Leading or trailing banks, go to Maricho 2 and Maricho 4. This 2 has that problems, and yes, Maricho 2 has this case. How about Maricho 4? Because this space is also regarded as a trailing space, so that's why it is also mentioned. Another problem is numeric null string. Do we have a null string, a label which captured nothing? They are telling us it is Maricho 4. And you can recall here in Maricho 4, we have number 4 here, where we have null string. And another thing is duplicated labels. It says go to Maricho 3 and Maricho 4. Maricho 3 and Maricho 4, here, we see single. That's why they were mentioned. So that is the case of duplicated labels. So instead of doing that manually, this command will help you to do that. And the last one, not used by any variables. These labels are not attached to variables, neither. So even if I do this now, if I say label values, label, let me say describe rep 78, for example, rep 78. What do you see, rep 78? It is attached with repair. Repair. It is here. Repair. Let me remove this from there. Label values rep 78, then a dot. It is removed from there. So if I rerun this command, label books, even repair will also be part of unused labels. Now you see even repair, where is repair? It is here. It is yet to be attached to any labels. So it means these are labels which you should use label values to attach them to columns. So it is very, very powerful command. Very powerful commands. The last for today is to make label data. Notes, I will not do them today. Just end with a label. I'll start them with another session to finalize. So to make a label data, another thing which you can do, very powerful, and the programmers use them a lot. This now will be number 3.10. 3.10. Make label data. To make label data. Here, I'll go back to NLSCSW, SYS, and LSW88, comma, clear. This one. If I use the command called, if I use the command called the label list, here, help label book. I think I forgot to move it also. Here, use label, sorry. Use label. This command, if I say use label, and then I say maybe I can decide the labels to specify, and start here with the label dir. But for the time being, I can't. Then I specify clear. What will happen? It is somewhere. Oh, I passed it back here. I remember now. It was here. I forgot to move it. It's here. Use the label. It will create 4 columns: L name, value, label, trunk. What is that? You say use the label clear. You see what happens here? It will put a label name, the code, and the labels of the code. Truncated says 0. It is 1 if the label is long enough and it was reduced. So when you see 0, this is binary status. The label name for the second label, code, label value. But this now it is a data set. You can even save it and share it with your colleague. So it takes everything together here. So you see the industry label, it has code from 1 to 12, and each with its own definition. So you are creating a data set for label. You are creating a data set for a label. So this is it. Another use, that is the command for data set in memory. But you can also do that for data set which is existing from your data, from your local file. Like here, you can access the local file name. Let me check here, which kind of directory am I in? If I can change directory, CD, I'll go to practice data, capacity buildings, Stata, capacity buildings, Stata. I want to use this Beth. Capacity building Stata. So now I have changed my directory. So I can say use dir among the data which are in there is Beth data, this one. So direct, I can say use this, all labels which are in there, comma clear, sorry. Use label, the command is use label, directly from there without loading the data, using this one, comma, clear. For data set from, that one is for data set from memory, but this one will go to data set which is within local disk. So it has only 2 labels, the sex and the height. 1, 2, male, female, 0, 1, non-hype, and the hypertension. So that is it. The last one, you need to install it. So yes, use NLSW clear. You need to install by using the following command: ssc install code book out. This is not native, but it's very powerful. It is not native, so you come here, make sure you have internet connection. So you just need to install it. Code book out. Me, I have it already, so I have this one. It is existing and up to date. So if I say help code book out, what will you see? It will say code book file name option. Code book out file name option. That file name will be Excel. So this one, code book out. What is my file name? My labels, for example. My labels, then comma what? It says comma replace. Yes, replace. Comma replace. Book out, replace. Invalid specification. It requires XLSX. It is Excel, comma XL. SX. It is something similar to that. Invalid file specification. Okay, let me check. Oh, I think I need to rerun from here. Yes. Must have labels in place first. So if I go to my practice data. The file should be written my labels. My labels. Where is my labels? My labels, Excel. My data. That's it is here. My labels. So this one will map every variable. How many variables? We have ID code. This one is integer. But the one with labels, res, the variable name, you see this? This one gives you the variable name, the variable label, the answer label. If it is not labeled, it will tell you open-ended. But if it is labeled, it will give you labels. The answer code, it will mention the codes and the data type, like this. So it will do that for all variables from your data set. So it is very, very powerful, even than use label. It will help you to describe. It will capture variable label, variable name, variable label, label name, code, and the variable type. This is enough for today. Unless you have questions, but I would like it to end here. The issue of notes, since it is new, it will be covered in the next session. I wanted this continuation. Is there a question, please? Welcome. If no, allow me to stop here. See you next time.